Assalamu alaikum. So on the Yawmul Jum'a today, I wanted to actually reflect about Jum'a and as professional and entrepreneurial Muslims, to actually give shukr and to give gratitude about how easy it might be nowadays to pray Jum'a and to reflect on the struggles we've had to do to establish this, right? Because for many of you, you'll remember 20 years ago or 15 years ago when you first started work, right? It wasn't straightforward to have Jum'a. Right, so the first thing I remember back in the day is that if you were not proactive and if you didn't mention at the interview, right, and say, by the way, I'm a Muslim and I do require to pray Jum'ah on Fridays, right? Now, what would happen, and this was really well known amongst practicing Muslim circles, is that if you didn't say anything in the interview and you got the job, and then later you're like, oh, by the way, boss, I need to go to Jum'ah prayers. I'm going to be like 20 minutes late. Now, that was terrible, right? Because it's bad da'wah. You're giving a bad impression of Islam. It's completely going against the expectations. It's going against the contract. And, and if they say no, it's not their fault, right? Because you didn't say it at the outset. So one thing we learned as professional Muslims, in the late 90s and the early 2000s was that you have to make sure you preempt that problem by stating it out at the beginning and making it as a contractual, something which you contracted to do. Now, subhanAllah, I don't know what the scene is like now. Please share in the comments below. Is it even illegal right now to pray Jum'ah? I'm not sure, but I'm self-employed and I've worked in Muslim schools. But certainly back then it wasn't. But alhamdulillah, one thing I give shukr for, I'm grateful for in this country, is that I've never ever had a problem in praying Jum'ah in non-Muslim workplaces. It's always been, they've been very open-minded about it. In fact, the second story I wanted to share is the hardest time I've ever had praying Jum'ah has been working in a Muslim firm. It was a Muslim law firm. And I still remember, like, the boss would pray. I'm sure he used to go to Jum'ah, but his wife would run the show. And she was a real taskmistress. And she would be like, she'd let us go, but she was so strict. It's like we literally just went there, prayed the fard, and we'd have to run back, right? She made no allowances and was really strict about it. That was actually the hardest place I've ever had to try to pray Jum'ah on time, okay? And that goes to show, that, and it's a bit like that with flights, right? That you go on KLM and you go on certain non-Muslim airlines and they used to let you pray, right? I used to follow a stricter opinion where I used to pray and do my whole sajda on the plane. And then with Turkish Airlines, for example, they wouldn't let me pray, right? Whereas in the non-Muslim ones, they would be like, oh, have you got enough space? And they'd actually make it easier for you. So it's not always what you see. And the final story I wanted to share was I once had a job offer, and they were not able to give me Jum'ah, right? So everything was great. It was an ideal school. This was actually the school I wanted to train to become a qualified teacher. And unfortunately, their lunch hour didn't coincide with my Jum'ah. And so they're like, sorry, there's nothing we can do. And if that's a requirement of your faith, we'll let you go. And so, but then I spoke to my wife, and this was good to do shura, to consult with your family. And then we thought about it. We said, well, teachers have something called free periods. And every job, you have PPP, call it in teaching, right? Planning and preparation, PPT, planning and preparation time. And so we thought, well, hold on. Why don't we ask them, could we negotiate that one of our planning and preparation time blocks is after lunch? And that would make the lunchtime effectively a lot longer. And I'll use my PPT time to actually go to Jum'ah. So when I suggested that, they actually were impressed with my ingenuity and the creativity, and they were like, yeah, that could work. We'll take you on, right? So it goes to show, this is, again, going back, and I want to finish with the Allah first approach, but there's a lot of Islamic time management lessons here. One is to be proactive, right? Anticipate the problem. And this is important in Sharia, in contracts, that you have to, any terms which could lead to dispute, you have to try to settle them at the outset, right? So when you know that Jum'ah is an important thing, make sure whenever you get a job, you mention that at the outset, and don't be afraid of it. This is where we fear Allah above everything. We have to we lose our job if it means we can't pray, right? Our prayer is more important than our job, okay? So you have that conviction. And then Allah will find ways. Whoever has taqwa of Allah, whoever has consciousness of Allah, in other words, whoever puts Allah first, Allah will find a way out. And will provide for him where he didn't even expect. And that's what I experienced in Tarleton in that school. And alhamdulillah, I think anyone listening to this, and you all know what I'm talking about, whenever, alhamdulillah, those people who really, it's unconditional. We have to pray our Jum'a, right? And you find that alhamdulillah, I've worked in a lot of workplaces, right? Those of you who know me, I'm famous for, leaving jobs when I'm not happy with it, and going to a place where I feel I can give the best value. I've been in a lot of professions, in the legal profession and the teaching profession. I've worked abroad. I've never, alhamdulillah, ever had to miss a Jum'ah ever at work, right? And many of you will resonate with that, because when we really put Allah first and we say, no, this is unconditional, this is what I'm going to do, then alhamdulillah, Allah gives you a way and gives barakah in your work. And inshallah, Ramadan's coming up, and it's going to be the same with fasting. We're going to fast, inshallah, despite what our work situation is, and we'll find barakah in it. So thank you for listening, and please do share your Jummah stories below. How easy was it for you to pray Jummah in your workplace? How easy is it now? I'd love to hear your stories. And Jazakallah khairan, Jummah Mubarak. Assalamu alaikum.